The forgotten American territories where you can live free, but almost no one talks about them. While most Americans are busy fighting traffic, rent hikes, and endless taxes, there are still pockets of the United States where life feels different. Places where the pace slows, the rules loosen, and freedom isn't just a slogan, it's a way of life. Here's the twist. They're technically part of America, but most people don't even realize they exist. They don't show up on your newsfeed, they're barely mentioned in school, and yet, they fly the same flag, use the same dollar, and follow the same constitution. These are the forgotten corners of the US that slipped under the radar while everyone else got distracted by the mainland rat race. And here's where it gets interesting. You don't need a passport to get there. No immigration hurdles, no language barriers, no complicated paperwork, just sunshine, simplicity, and the kind of freedom that feels illegal. Meanwhile, back in the continental US, Americans are paying the highest combined taxes in history. Property prices are through the roof. Groceries cost more than rent in some cities. And yet, in these overlooked territories, people are still living debt-free, tax-light, and stress-free. It's the kind of irony that makes you wonder if the American dream just packed its bags and moved somewhere warmer. So why doesn't anyone talk about these places? Maybe because they don't fit the mainstream narrative. Or maybe because they're the last truly free corners left under the stars and stripes. Welcome to Mr. Globe TV, where we explore the places, policies, and possibilities shaping the future of smart living. In today's video, we're uncovering the forgotten American territories where you can still live free, and almost no one even knows about them. If you're ready to see a side of America that feels like paradise but still comes with all the perks of home, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay till the end, because by the time we reach number 1, you might start questioning everything you thought you knew about freedom. Number 7. Wake Island. If freedom had an outpost at the edge of the world, it would probably look like Wake Island. A tiny sunburned speck in the Pacific that's technically part of the United States, but feels like a set piece from a movie about the end of civilization. It's a place so remote that even your GPS might shrug. Wake Island is one of those curious geographical footnotes that make you wonder if the US government accidentally collected it like a souvenir during a road trip through the Pacific. Located about halfway between Hawaii and Guam, this coral atoll sits quietly in the middle of nowhere. No permanent residents, no taxes, no Starbucks, and absolutely no traffic. Unless you count the occasional sea turtle or the sound of the wind doing its best impression of silence. And here's where it gets interesting. It's fully under US control. Administered by the Air Force as part of the Pacific Remote Islands. Officially, it's unincorporated, meaning it's US soil, but not a US state. In other words, you're in America, sort of. You can't vote, you can't move there permanently, but you can plant the flag and technically say you're on American ground. It's one of those bureaucratic paradoxes that make you go, only the US could own a piece of paradise and turn it into a restricted military zone. Historically, Wake Island's story reads like an epic that got lost between history chapters. It was a key military base during World War II, fiercely fought over by US and Japanese forces. After that, it became a Cold War outpost, a refueling stop for trans-Pacific flights, and now, an occasional research station and missile testing site. Think of it as the Pentagon's version of a timeshare. Nobody really lives there, but it's nice to know it's available. Economically speaking, Wake Island doesn't contribute much to the national balance sheet, unless you count the fact that it's a tax-free zone. But then again, there's nothing to tax. No residents, no property sales, no HOA meetings. Just open ocean and US sovereignty stretching as far as the horizon. It's the ultimate live-free destination, except for the minor inconvenience that you can't actually live there. Still, it serves as a fascinating symbol of America's far-flung reach, proof that the US doesn't just exist from sea to shining sea, but from sea to sea again. It's one of those places that reminds you the US flag isn't just national, it's planetary. You could call it the loneliest zip code on Earth. Though, fun fact, Wake Island does have an official zip code, 96898, even though no one's checking the mailbox. So why does Wake Island matter? because it embodies that strange mix of ambition and absurdity that defines America's global footprint. It's quiet, isolated, and largely forgotten, yet it plays a strategic role in the country's defense network and scientific research. In a way, it's the perfect metaphor for freedom itself. Remote, expensive to maintain, and rarely visited, but proudly protected. And while you won't find Airbnb listings or beachfront condos here anytime soon, Wake Island earns its spot on this list as the most literal example of living off the grid, under the US flag, beyond the reach of just about everything else. Number 6. The Northern Mariana Islands. Some places make you wonder how they're not on every postcard or retirement brochure, and the Northern Mariana Islands are one of them. A tropical chain of 14 islands tucked neatly between Japan and the Philippines, this U.S. territory feels like someone took the best parts of Hawaii, removed the price tag, and then forgot to tell anyone it existed. These islands operate under U.S. sovereignty, meaning everyone here enjoys American citizenship, U.S. dollars, and constitutional protections, but with far fewer taxes and a lot more sunshine. It's technically part of the United States, but geographically and culturally, it feels like another world. There's no need for a passport if you're American, no confusing visa process, and certainly no bureaucratic headaches. Just book a flight, land in paradise, and remember, you're still on U.S. soil. Taxes? Surprisingly gentle. Residents of the Northern Marianas only pay federal taxes on income earned within the islands, and the local government handles most other levies. That means you're keeping more of what you make and spending it on coconuts, snorkeling trips, or maybe that beachfront bungalow you thought only existed in daydreams. The economy here runs on tourism, light manufacturing, and a growing remote work community, so you can actually live the island life without giving up modern conveniences like Wi-Fi or Amazon deliveries. And speaking of convenience, the climate is a constant 80-something degrees, the beaches look photoshopped, and the coral reefs could give the Maldives a run for their money. From Saipan's white sand shores to Tinian's Bulawawi-2 relics and Rhoda's untouched jungles, each island has its own rhythm. You can surf in the morning, dive among shipwrecks in the afternoon, and finish the day eating barbecue with locals who'll insist you take leftovers home. Island hospitality at its finest. But beyond the beaches, what really makes this place stand out is the blend of cultures and governance. It's America meets Micronesia meets Asia, a rare cocktail of laid-back island life, U.S. structure, and Pacific tradition. English is widely spoken, but you'll hear Chamorro and Carolinian languages mixed with Japanese, Korean, and Filipino influences. It's an international mosaic that somehow feels perfectly balanced, like a mini United Nations where everyone agrees that flip-flops are formal wear. And for those craving a slower pace without sacrificing security, this is a dream scenario. The Northern Marianas combine legal stability, thanks to U.S. jurisdiction, with global proximity. Tokyo, Manila, and Hong Kong are all just a few hours away. For remote workers, retirees, and anyone burnt out on continental chaos, it's a low-tax haven where your stress level drops as fast as your heart rate when you see the view. The funny thing is, hardly anyone talks about it. The Northern Marianas don't have the marketing muscle of Hawaii or the social media fame of Bali, and that's precisely what makes them special. No overcrowded beaches, no inflated rents, no influencer zones. Just warm water, friendly faces, and a lifestyle that still feels authentic. So, while most Americans are stuck in traffic somewhere stateside, a lucky few are out here enjoying sunsets that look like nature's screensaver, under the same flag, on territory that's technically home, and legally free to live, work, or retire in peace. Number 5. American Samoa. American Samoa is one of those places that make you stop and say, wait, that's part of the United States? And the answer is yes, very much so, though it operates on its own rhythm, far removed from the mainland's hustle, noise, and obsession with two-day shipping. It's an American territory that feels like a different world entirely, rugged, proud, and beautifully self-contained. Located deep in the South Pacific, American Samoa sits about halfway between Hawaii and New Zealand, yet it's completely under U.S. sovereignty. The people here are U.S. nationals, not citizens. A rare status that gives them the right to live and work anywhere in the United States, but without some of the federal tax and voting responsibilities that come with citizenship. Translation: Freedom, without as much paperwork. Life here operates on island time, which isn't a cliché. It's a lifestyle. Things move slower, people smile more, and stress evaporates somewhere over the ocean. With lush volcanic peaks, tropical rainforests, and coral reefs straight out of a travel magazine, American Samoa feels like Hawaii before it was discovered by the rest of the world. The capital, Pago Pago, is a natural harbor surrounded by emerald green mountains, and while it's small, it's the beating heart of a territory that's big on community and tradition. One of the most fascinating things about American Samoa is how it manages to blend U.S. structure with Polynesian culture. The territory runs on a local communal system known as Fa Samoa, the Samoan way, where respect, family, and harmony come before everything else. Land here is communally owned by extended families, not corporations, which means outsiders can't just show up and start building beach resorts. That's part of the reason the islands have retained their natural beauty and why they still feel authentically Samoan, not westernized. Economically, it's a mix of fishing, tourism, and government work, with a cost of living that's refreshingly reasonable compared to Hawaii or Guam. Locals enjoy many of the same benefits as other U.S. territories: use of the U.S. dollar, access to Social Security and federal programs, and visa-free travel to the mainland. And here's a fun twist. Because of its distance and self-sufficiency, American Samoa doesn't pay federal income tax the same way states do. That makes it one of the most lightly taxed regions under the U.S. flag. For remote workers or adventurous retirees, the territory's small but growing digital infrastructure offers an unexpected advantage: peace. You can work with your laptop facing the ocean, your money goes further, and your nearest traffic jam probably involves a few chickens and a pickup truck. But perhaps the most refreshing part of American Samoa is its balance between freedom and community. While it gives you room to breathe, no big crowds, no dense development, no towering condos, it also gives you a sense of belonging that's hard to find elsewhere. Neighbors look out for one another, crime rates are low, and nature is still treated like something sacred. If Hawaii is America's playground, American Samoa is its quiet sanctuary, a place where you can live freely under the U.S. flag, far from the noise, taxes, and stress of the mainland. It's not for everyone. It's remote, traditional, and proudly independent, but for those who crave simplicity with sovereignty, it's a gem that time and tourism somehow forgot. Number 4. Guam. Guam is the kind of place that makes you wonder how something so strategic, so scenic, and so American could be so overlooked. It's not a secret exactly. There are over 150,000 people living there, but it's treated like one. Ask the average person to point to Guam on a map, and you'll probably get a confident finger somewhere near Hawaii, which is roughly 3,800 miles off. But here's the truth. This tropical island is the westernmost slice of U.S. soil, a full-fledged American territory sitting quietly in the western Pacific, closer to Manila than to Los Angeles. Guam is often called where America's day begins, and that's not just poetic branding. Thanks to its time zone, the island literally wakes up before the mainland does. So yes, while most Americans are still hitting snooze, Guam has already had breakfast, finished work, and probably taken a sunset walk on a beach that looks like a desktop wallpaper. What makes Guam fascinating isn't just its beauty, though the turquoise waters, coral reefs, and limestone cliffs certainly don't hurt. It's the fact that it offers nearly everything you'd expect from an American city: U.S. dollars, McDonald's, Home Depot, high-speed internet, and even U.S. Postal Service, but with a completely different rhythm. Think Honolulu's infrastructure mixed with island charm, minus the crowds and triple-digit hotel rates. Legally speaking, Guam is an unincorporated U.S. territory, which means it's under full American control but governs itself locally. Residents are U.S. citizens and can move freely to and from the mainland, but the island's relationship with Washington is complicated. They don't vote in presidential elections, and their representative in Congress can debate but not vote on the House floor. Still, locals often describe it as the best and worst of both worlds: full American rights when they need them, island autonomy when they don't. From a financial standpoint, Guam holds its own. There's no local tax on Social Security benefits, pensions, or military pay, and the cost of living, while higher than some mainland states, is balanced by no sales tax and plenty of federal support. Tourism remains the island's economic engine, with visitors from Japan, Korea, and the US, military-based population keeping the economy humming. And for those working remotely or running an online business, Guam's connectivity and tax simplicity make it surprisingly livable. But beyond the numbers, what truly sets Guam apart is its culture, a mix of Chamorro heritage, American modernity, and Pacific warmth. The locals, known for their hospitality, often say, "In Guam, nobody's a stranger, just someone we haven't fed yet." Family and community come first here, and it shows. You'll find weekend fiestas spilling into the streets, oceanfront barbecues that last all night, and a respect for tradition that runs deeper than the island's volcanic roots. Yet despite its stunning beaches, lush jungles, and surprisingly strong economy, Guam rarely gets the spotlight it deserves. Maybe it's because it's so far west, it feels like it's hiding from the mainland. Or maybe it's because it doesn't need validation. Guam knows exactly what it is, America's tropical frontier, where you can live free, stay connected, and still feel like you've escaped the chaos of the continental grind. In the grand map of forgotten American territories, Guam stands out as the one that never really needed remembering. It's not forgotten because it failed. It's forgotten because it's quietly thriving, blending freedom, beauty, and identity better than most of the states that claim the headlines. Number 3. U.S. Virgin Islands. If there were ever a place that proves you don't have to leave U.S. soil to feel like you've left reality, it's the U.S. Virgin Islands. Made up of St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, this Caribbean trio is a sun-soaked blend of turquoise waters, laid-back charm, and economic perks that would make even your accountant crack a smile. It's technically part of America, but it feels like America's permanently on-vacation cousin who figured out life a long time ago. Here's the deal. Residents of the Virgin Islands are U.S. citizens. They use the U.S. dollar, and you don't even need a passport to visit if you're American. The mail system, the legal code, even the driving laws, well, sort of, they drive on the left which keeps tourists awake, are American. But the attitude? That's pure Caribbean ease. There's no rush, no rat race, and definitely no winter coats. Now, beyond the white sands and steel drum sunsets lies the real gem. The tax benefits. The U.S. Virgin Islands run their own version of the Internal Revenue Service called the Virgin Islands Bureau of Internal Revenue, and under their Economic Development Commission (EDC) program, qualified residents and investors can receive up to a 90% reduction in personal and corporate income taxes. Yes, you read that right. 90. You still pay federal taxes, but much less of them. This isn't some shady offshore loophole. It's a legitimate, federally sanctioned program designed to attract entrepreneurs, retirees, and investors to the islands. In short, if you can bring value to the territory will make it very worth your while. Businesses that qualify under the EDC often get additional perks, including reduced property taxes, import exemptions, and generous deductions. It's like the Caribbean's version of welcome to the neighborhood. And while the financial perks are a serious draw, life here isn't just about tax forms and spreadsheets. Each island has its own distinct personality. St. Thomas is the lively one, full of cruise ships, nightlife, and shopping that ranges from local crafts to luxury boutiques. St. John is the quiet soul, home to pristine national parks, coral reefs, and that barefoot luxury energy that money can't fake. Then there's St. Croix, the cultural heart, rich in history, food, and the kind of community warmth that reminds you people still wave to each other. Living in the Virgin Islands comes with its quirks, of course. Shipping can take a while, groceries cost more because everything arrives by boat, and the power grid occasionally plays favorites. But the trade-off? You wake up surrounded by ocean views, pay less in taxes than most mainlanders, and get to call paradise your legal residence. That's a pretty fair exchange. There's also a deeper beauty here, not just in the beaches or the sunsets, but in the balance. It's a place where U.S. stability meets Caribbean soul. You're protected under the same flag, spend the same dollars, and speak the same language, yet you get to live in a place that feels a world away from the mainland's stress. It's familiar enough to be comfortable, but far enough to be free. So while most people dream of escaping to the islands, residents of the U.S. Virgin Islands quietly live that dream. Legally, comfortably, and tax efficiently. And the best part? They're not escaping America. They're just living in its most beautiful fine print. Number 2. Puerto Rico. If the U.S. Virgin Islands are paradise on cruise control, Puerto Rico is paradise in motion, rebuilding, reinventing, and quietly becoming one of the most compelling places in the Americas to live, invest, and thrive under the U.S. flag. It's a territory that's been through hurricanes, debt crises, and decades of economic challenges, yet somehow keeps bouncing back with the resilience of a palm tree in a storm. Bent, not broken. Puerto Rico is often misunderstood. Technically, it's a U.S. territory, not a state, but residents are full U.S. citizens, use the U.S. dollar, and can move freely between the island and the mainland. No passport, no customs line, no international headache. The legal and business structure runs on familiar U.S. systems, making it a magnet for entrepreneurs, retirees, and digital nomads who want island life without giving up the security and rights of American residency. Puerto Rico offers something that not even most U.S. states can: massive tax incentives. Through Acts 60 and 2022, the island has positioned itself as a haven for investors and remote professionals. Under these programs, qualifying residents can enjoy 0% tax on capital gains, dividends, and interest income, and businesses can pay as little as 4% corporate tax. Yes, zero, as in, Uncle Sam won't be showing up to claim half your success. For Americans who move to the island and meet the residency requirements, it's one of the few legal ways to dramatically reduce taxes without renouncing citizenship. Of course, Puerto Rico isn't just about financial strategy. It's about culture, a lively, colorful fusion of Latin American warmth and American familiarity. From the cobblestone streets of Old San Juan, where pastel buildings spill over with history, to the rainforest peaks of El Yunque and the glowing bioluminescent bays that seem almost unreal, the island pulses with energy. You'll find a mix of Spanish and English, salsa and reggaeton, plantains and pizza, all blending into something uniquely Puerto Rican. The economy, once reliant on manufacturing and tourism, is diversifying fast. The tech and crypto scenes are booming, thanks to those investor-friendly laws. Remote work has brought a new wave of mainlanders, while locals are rebuilding infrastructure, opening new businesses, and pushing for more autonomy. And while Puerto Rico has faced its share of political debates about statehood, independence, or remaining a territory, the people here seem more focused on progress than labels. Cost of living? It's lower than many U.S. cities. Rent in San Juan can be half of what you'd pay in Miami, though imported goods do cost a bit more. But when your morning commute involves ocean breezes and pastel skies, it's hard to complain. Healthcare is solid, internet connectivity is improving rapidly, and for retirees, no federal tax on Social Security is a quiet bonus. What makes Puerto Rico's story so remarkable is its combination of freedom, affordability, and opportunity, all wrapped in Caribbean sunlight. You're under the U.S. flag, protected by U.S. law, but you get to live in a tropical economy where your money stretches further and your taxes shrink faster. It's not a loophole, it's a lifestyle. In many ways, Puerto Rico is America's best-kept open secret, a comeback island rewriting its future, not as a dependency, but as a destination. It's where people come for the weather and stay for the wisdom. That balance between modern ambition and laid-back freedom. Number 1. Guahan Bay. We've arrived at number 1, and fittingly, it's a place most Americans couldn't find on a map, even if you spotted them Hawaii for reference. Welcome to Guahan Bay, the heart of Guam, America's westernmost frontier and one of its most strategically important, yet strangely overlooked territories. It's a place where palm trees outnumber stoplights, where your tax rate is light but the sunsets are heavy with color, and where the word remote finally earns its meaning. Guahan Bay isn't just a body of water, it's the symbolic and literal gateway to America's presence in the Pacific. The bay, a serene curve of turquoise framed by jungle hills and coral reefs, has seen everything from Spanish galleons to U.S. Navy ships. It's a crossroads of cultures. Chamorro tradition, Asian influence, and American governance all swirl together here, like ingredients in a tropical cocktail that somehow works perfectly. Living near Guahan Bay or anywhere on Guam comes with some surprising perks. First, no state income tax. The island follows U.S. federal law, but with local autonomy that makes taxation far simpler and often lighter. Residents are U.S. citizens, use U.S. dollars, and enjoy many of the same legal protections as the mainland, minus the voting booth for president. Yet ask any local and they'll tell you, they don't need a ballot box to know freedom. Here, it's measured in space, pace, and the ability to live life by the ocean without needing to explain yourself to a spreadsheet. Economically, Guam has a surprisingly diverse backbone. Tourism, defense, and trade all keep things humming. The Andersen Air Force Base and Naval Base Guam inject billions into the island's economy, while the tourism industry, especially from Japan and South Korea, keeps local businesses thriving. For Americans seeking a simpler life abroad, without ever leaving U.S. jurisdiction, it's a dream. No currency conversions, no visa issues, no health insurance headaches. Of course, paradise isn't maintenance-free. Groceries cost a bit more since most things arrive by ship, and typhoons occasionally remind everyone that the Pacific doesn't always play nice. But here's the thing, life slows down just enough for you to notice what actually matters. The community is tight-knit, the crime rate is low, and the sunsets? Let's just say the sky does more painting than any museum could afford. Culturally, Guahan Bay is where the spirit of Guam lives. Fishermen cast nets the way their ancestors did centuries ago. Kids play in waters so clear they can see their reflections ripple, and families gather for weekend barbecues that feel like festivals. Respect for nature, elders, and heritage runs deep. And yet, Wi-Fi signals are strong. Coffee shops are buzzing with remote workers, and the global world hums quietly in the background, just distant enough not to intrude. Guam isn't the kind of place you stumble upon. It's the kind of place you choose, when you've had enough of traffic, taxes, and noise and start craving authenticity wrapped in sunshine. It's where the U.S. meets Asia, where time zones turn early mornings into tomorrows, and where the word forgotten really just means untouched. And as we wrap up this countdown, here's the takeaway. America is bigger and freer than most people realize. From the Caribbean to the Pacific, its territories tell a story of resilience, beauty, and opportunity hidden in plain sight. So whether you're looking for a tax break, a beach house, or a fresh start under the stars, don't overlook the edges of the map. That's where freedom tends to hide. Thank you for watching and spending time with me here on Mr. Globe. If this opened your eyes to just how vast and surprising America truly is, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, which of these forgotten territories would you call home? Until next time, live free, live smart, spend wisely, and remember to stay safe.